I listen to television, and I see all of the people who are shot and killed all the time. And sometimes I think that these people have no respect whatsoever for life. I listened to Dylan Roof talk about why he killed the people in the church in Charleston, South Carolina, and I'm appalled. He talks about it as though he's bragging, and about how his white supremacy is the reason for all this. And it just makes my heart sick. Death is never easy. It's something that we deal with, we see, and we don't know what to do with it all the time. Remember when my parents died, when Rosie's parents died, our dads were in their 60s, her mother was in her 50s, and my mother lived almost to 89, but it was hard to lose them. And I bring this up because this past couple of weeks we've had two funerals. Rosie's Uncle David died, and a good friend of mine, Father John Fetterman, not the mayor of Braddock, but another John Fetterman, a beautiful guy, who was my interim at Christ Church North Hills before I was their rector in 1981. He was a good guy, and he died, and we had the funeral. And it's hard to lose people. It really is. It's one of the most difficult things that we ever do in this world. But Jesus had some words for us about this. He didn't allow it just to happen. Death is the beginning of eternal life. Oh, that's not easy to understand. It's hard to see. But he gave us some hints in his ministry that this was what he came here to give to us. I know that. And the two stories that we have in the scriptures today are all about that. The first one is from Ezekiel, and it's the story of the Valley of the Dry Bones. I always thought that this was just some kind of a fantasy when I read it as a kid, or read it for many years. How Ezekiel goes to the Valley of the Dry Bones, and he prophesies, and he tells the bones to rise and to come together, and that they are to be alive again. And what happens is the bones all gather, they pick up their flesh and their sinews, and God tells him to prophesy again to them and tell them to have breath, and they have breath. And God says to Ezekiel, these are the lost people of Israel who have come together and who will get their land and their lives back again. Now that's the story of the dry bones, and it's a beautiful story. In the gospel, it's about Jesus and that marvelous story of Lazarus in Bethany. When we were in Israel, we went to Bethany, and we saw the tomb of Lazarus, that cave with the rock against it, only the rock was not there, and we went into the place where Lazarus had been buried, and we saw the shelves on which the bodies were put, and we came out, and we were in wonder at this marvelous, marvelous story of the raising of Lazarus. Jesus comes to Bethany after he waits 2 days. He's up in Galilee, and he waits. He doesn't want to go right away. And he brings his disciples with him, and they come down, and they're in Bethany. And Martha, the oldest of the sisters, comes running toward him, and as I picture it, grabs him by his robe and fairly shouts at him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." And when he says he will rise again on the last day, what I hear Martha say is sarcastically, "Yes, yes, Lord, I know he'll rise again at the great resurrection." And he says, "I am the resurrection, and I am the life. If you believe in me, you will never die." And Martha kneels and understands exactly what he's saying. And then Mary comes to him and says the same thing. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." And again, he understands the pain, and she weeps. And then Jesus says, "Where have you laid him?" And he goes and he stands by the tomb, and Jesus weeps also. And the people standing around say, "See how much he loved him." But some others say, "Could not this man who opened the done something to keep this man from dying. So Jesus says, stands by the tomb, and there's a rock against the tomb, and he says, open the tomb. And they move the rock away, and Jesus calls to Lazarus, Lazarus, come forth. And the dead man gets up and comes out, wrapped in his bandages. And they undo the bandages, and Lazarus is free. Now that's a beautiful story. And it's a story of the gift of life back to Lazarus, and the gift of Lazarus back to Mary and Martha, who loved him dearly and who missed him terribly. And there we are, resurrection and life that has been given back to that man. And it's a story to help us to understand what Jesus brought into this world. In a couple of weeks, we will celebrate Easter, the great coming of Jesus into Jerusalem on a donkey, and then he is tried and convicted and sent to the cross to die, and he dies. And then a little while later, he rises from the dead. And that's the story that we have in our scriptures that we are to remember about our own lives. Yes, we will die. That's a given. There's no question about that. You've all had some experience with that. You know how we grieve, and we know how it hurts. But we will rise again, and we will know each other, and we will see the power of our God that is not just here in this world, but all in our lives for eternity. That's what we have to look forward to. And that's the beauty of God's love in this world. And I thank God for it. Amen.
Amen.